As much as they'd like you to believe that Allah simply means God, it doesn't. It is rather the name of Islam's deity. Actually, the name of Allah is linguistically linked to Halal, the name translated Lucifer in Isaiah 14:12. Allah, to put it bluntly, is Satan. According to Muslim scriptures, Allah cares nothing for the welfare of people. While there are a hell and a paradise in Islamic theology to which men will go after death, there is no way to choose between them or even influence one's eternal destiny. Yes, a paradise populated with big-eyed, sex-starved virgins and rivers flowing with wine is offered to jihad fighters as a perverse bribe. Sick, considering such things are strictly forbidden in this life. But Islamic teachings as a whole are quite clear. Everyone is predestined to one fate or the other, the vast majority to hell, by the way. Good works avail nothing, and Christian-style grace is a concept foreign to Islam. According to Muhammad's words recorded in the Hadith of al-Bukhari, the total capacity of paradise is 70,000 souls. Since there have been perhaps 3 billion Muslims on earth throughout history, the odds are about 43,000 to 1 that you won't make it. And that's if you're a Muslim. Where will Allah be throughout eternity? In paradise with the chosen few? No. In heaven? It's a separate place in Muslim theology. No. He'll be in hell, tormenting the infidels whom he decided, long before they were even born, to send there. Muhammad assures us that Allah likes to turn the spit upon which Jews, Christians, and other infidels are to be roasted alive. That's but one of many fundamental differences between Christianity and Islam. In Islam, hell is being in the presence of God, but in Christianity, hell is being separated from Him. That should tell you something about who Muslims are really worshiping. Why can't Muslims see the folly of their religion? You don't have to scratch too far beneath the surface to discover that there's no hope there. Why don't they leave, quit, rebel? It's not that simple, I'm afraid. Islam is structured to systematically persecute any who leave the fold. They are ostracized by family, shut out of society, sometimes killed. Moreover, Muslims are discouraged, even in their own scriptures, from looking too closely at the nature of Islam. Those who do, it is said, are apt to lose their faith. Rather, they are told merely to obey, to submit, to do what they're told. Memorize, don't analyze. Thinking is bad, blind obedience is good. When Muhammad received his first and only revelation, a being whom he was convinced was a demon demanded that he read. But Muhammad, who was illiterate, could not comply, so the spirit molested him until he couldn't breathe, and then told him to read again. This is all hauntingly reminiscent of what Isaiah had written 1,300 years previously.
The whole vision has become to you, this would be the enemies of Israel, like the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one who is literate, saying, "Read this, please," and he says, "I cannot, for it is sealed." Then the book is delivered to one who is illiterate, saying, "Read this, please." He says, "I am not literate."
Neither the literate enemies of Israel, like the Babylonians and Romans, nor their illiterate adversaries, like the Muslims, would have a clue that by oppressing the Jews they were inviting the wrath of God.
Therefore Yahweh said, "Inasmuch as these people draw near with their mouths, and honor me with their lips, but have removed their hearts far from me, and their fear toward me is taught by the commandment of men, therefore, behold, I will again do a marvelous work among this people, a marvelous work and a wonder. For the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hidden." Isaiah 29:11-14.
This is a pungent warning to all man-made religious constructs. Although written to and about apostate Israel, it's hard to imagine a more fitting description of Islam than this. But Islam, Judaism, and Christianity are all monotheistic religions, you protest. Surely there must be points upon which you can agree. Whoever said Islam was monotheistic? Oh yeah, they did. Sorry, it's just not true. Muhammad started off in Mecca supposedly receiving his revelations from a god he simply called Lord, even though there were over 300 local gods and goddesses from which to choose in the local shrine known as the Kaaba. Allah was there, and his 3 daughters, Alat, Manat, and Aluza, were close by, but the Prophet didn't call on any of them. As time went on, Muhammad began invoking a god named Ar-Rahman instead of the generic Lord. Ar-Rahman, whose name means the merciful, but linguistically can be traced directly to the Persian name for devil, was a bloodthirsty pagan deity worshipped not in Mecca, but far to the south in Yemen. It wasn't until Muhammad was run out of town as a public nuisance, finding shelter among the gullible Arabs in Yathrib, known as Medina, that he began calling upon the name of Allah. Why? It's simple. As backward as the Meccans were, they knew that the Christian and Jewish God had prophets who performed miracles in his name. If Muhammad invoked a local god, like Allah, he would be hard-pressed to explain why he couldn't do any signs or wonders. If he were a great prophet, as he claimed, he would be expected to be the vehicle for God's power, like Moses, Elijah, or Yahshua had been. At the very least, the black rock that represented Allah in the Kaaba would have been expected to give a sign authenticating his prophet. Roll over or change colors or something. But that wasn't going to happen, and Muhammad knew it. No, the deity du jour would have to be somebody from out of town, somebody who couldn't be put to the test. In Mecca, of course, they saw right through Muhammad's ploy. They knew him. In Yathrib, the city to which Muhammad ignominiously fled in 622, 3 of its 5 tribes were Jewish. There, true to form, Muhammad picked up just enough information to be dangerous from the Jews' recitations from the Talmud and other sources, apocryphal and otherwise. Reshaping these quasi-biblical stories to Muslim propaganda, Muhammad once again found himself the target of ridicule. It was like Mecca all over again. In his versions, prophets, like Lot and Moses, were sent to the men of Sodom and to Pharaoh, and judgment was visited upon everyone who rejected them. In other words, everybody. The moral of the story was always the same: obey the prophet or suffer disastrous consequences. When Muhammad's messianic aspirations became apparent, the derision meter redlined. Muhammad was losing his taste for Jews. You see, Muhammad apparently got wind of Moses' prophecy concerning a coming prophet, the Messiah, and tried to convince the Jews of Yathrib that he was the fulfillment of that promise.
I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brethren, and put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. And it shall be that whosoever will not hear my words, which he speaks in my name, I will require it of him.
Of course, Muhammad conveniently ignored the rest of the prophecy.
But the prophet who presumes to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet shall die. And if you say in your heart, how shall we know the word which Yahweh has not spoken, when a prophet speaks in the name of Yahweh? If the thing does not happen or come to pass, that is the thing which Yahweh has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. You shall not be afraid of him. You shall not revere him. Deuteronomy 18:18-22.
For their part, the Yathrib Jews may have been thinking about another Mosaic passage.
If there arises among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and he gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or wonder comes to pass, of which he has spoken to you, saying, Let us go after other gods which you have not known, and let us serve them, you shall not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For Yahweh your God is testing you to know whether you love Yahweh your God with all your heart and with all your soul. You shall walk after Yahweh your God and revere him, and keep his commandments and obey his voice, and you shall serve him and hold fast to him. But that prophet or dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has spoken in order to turn you away from Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, and who redeemed you from the house of bondage, to entice you from the way in which Yahweh your God commanded you to walk. So you shall put away the evil from your midst. Deuteronomy 13:1-5.
This upped the ante. Even if Muhammad had been able to perform miracles or produce signs of his authenticity, which he could not, the very fact that he advocated the worship of another god, Allah, was enough to disqualify him. Actually, it was even worse than that. The Jews were under instructions from both passages to kill him. They did not, however, and Muhammad went on to exile, enslave, or murder every one of them. The Muslim immigrants from Mecca were living off the charity of the Arabs in Yathrib. Rather than assimilate into society and go to work for a living, they decided that it would be easier to rob caravans, a practice that was unheard of in that place and time. After 9 unsuccessful attempts, they finally succeeded. Muhammad had morphed from prophet to profiteer. After a few subsequent skirmishes were disappointing in the booty department, the next logical step was to attack the Jewish tribes in Yathrib or Medina. The Muslims wanted some booty in the worst way, and the Jews were easy targets, relatively wealthy, and had proved their impertinence by scoffing at Muhammad's messianic claims. The Beni Kanuka were the first tribe to go, exiled from their own city, forced to leave everything behind but their lives. Then the Beni al-Nadir were surrounded, starved out, and sent packing. The third Jewish tribe didn't fare so well. The Beni Qurayza were captured, but rather than being merely robbed and forced into the desert, the men were blindfolded, brought out in small groups to a large trench the Muslims had dug, and beheaded. Their wives and children were sold into slavery. Hitler had nothing on Muhammad except greater population density and German technology. This is nowhere near the whole story, you understand, but it helps to explain things like the Palestinian suicide bombers and the events of September 11th. True followers of Muhammad, a phrase that describes a growing minority of Muslims, are in it for what they can get out of it, either booty in this world or paradise in the next. The prophet Joel was apparently given a glimpse of the Muslim mindset.
On account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, they have also divided up my land. They have cast lots for my people, having given a boy as payment for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they may drink. Indeed, what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Sidon, and all the coasts of Philistia? Will you retaliate against me? But if you retaliate against me, swiftly and speedily I will return your retaliation upon your own head. Joel 3:2-4.
Paradise is promised to young Muslims willing to blow themselves up in public places, taking as many Jews as possible with them. But what is paradise? It is described in the Hadith as a place of unending sex with perpetual virgins, a land of low-hanging fruit and free-flowing wine.
They have given a boy as payment for a harlot.
Is a pretty good description of a Palestinian suicide bomber. The very things Muhammad forbade in this life were promised in the next. All you had to do to attain these goals, he said, was to die fighting people Muhammad hated, Jews and Christians. Incredibly, many bought into this scheme. Allah's goals and Satan's goals are identical. If you'd like to get a better handle on the connection between Islam and terrorism, read our novel, Tea with Terrorists. Or better yet, if you've got the fortitude for it, read Craig Wynn's subsequent non-fiction masterwork on Islam called Prophet of Doom.